You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cards to the Moon. I'm Clark, and I'm joined again with Hyung and John. How's it going, guys?
What's up, guys?
Nice of you guys to join again. So before we get into our hobby headline segment at the top of the show, I've got a question for Hyung. You know, back in episode 1, you mentioned you were going after the Ohtani Topps update, and I think that was a rookie variation auto, right?
Right, yeah.
Number 5?
It's not numbered, but the print run was approximately 5.
Okay.
And a lot of people didn't know that. But apparently more people than I thought, because I did not win the card, unfortunately.
Shoot.
I really, I guess, didn't think that it was going to go as high as it did. I believe it closed at like 4.5K. And for an Ohtani paper card, you know, that's, you know, pretty high.
Yeah,
but then if you think about it, it was totally worth it, because I don't think you're going to see one of those for sale, you know, maybe ever. You know, that might not even come across eBay, right? So, but I did pick up a Luka Select Silver on your kind of recommendation.
Nice.
Picked up
So
Trey,
this
and
was like
I did pick up a Luka as well, a Luka Shock. So I guess I made up for that loss.
Nice. Redemption shopping,
right? Exactly. Emotional shopping.
Yeah. Tilt.
Thanks for the update. All right, so let's get into hobby headlines. So we talked extensively about grading cards just in episode 2, and one of those third-party grading companies, PSA, announced they caught up on their huge backlog of submissions, which means they should be sending back a bunch of slabs back to collectors relatively soon. So the question is, with so many slabs about to flood the market, do you expect the already soft sports card market to dip even further? Or worse, will it turn into a quote-unquote bear market where investor types will begin to pull out of their sports card investment and possibly look elsewhere to build their alternative investment portfolio? In other words, are we entering what people call a junk slab era? You know, similar to the junk wax era that we all lived through here, right? When we bought sports cards as kids that had seemingly unlimited print runs. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Man, I've been wrestling with this for quite a while. So I think everybody knows the poster boy cards of the junk, quote unquote junk slab era is Luka Prism and Zion Prism. Those are probably the most talked about cards when we talk about this sort of like overproduction of like gem cards and whatnot. I've been thinking about this for quite a while. Like the last couple of episodes that we did, I have always been I love Luka. I continue to chase Luka. I think he's a generational talent. But I have always told Hyung, you guys, my other buddies, I stay away from Luka Prism. I don't like the pop count. But the more I think about this, and especially the last comments that Jeff Wilson made about this whole like market crash and what he thought about it, and how it's more about the talking heads and it's more about the fear mongering as people continue to talk about a certain narrative that gets imprinted into people's minds. And then that's what becomes that. Like, so for example, if we continue to talk about quote unquote junk slab era, this could actually become a junk slab era if we believe and have fear. I don't want to purchase any cards that are over 1,000 pop, right? So on the one hand, I've always been under the process of like, okay, I'm not touching Luka Prism. On the other hand, when you think about it, I mean, like, everybody who follows basketball, everybody in the sports card industry, everyone knows Luka. Everybody loves Luka. Everyone's going after Luka. Even if you imagine, I don't know, like the Mavs Stadium, like you ask the 20,000 people in there, would you want a Luka Prism PSA 10? They would say yes, right? So the demand, even if the pop count is 17K, like the demand should be way greater than 17K. I think that number shouldn't be even that scary. But because we have talked about this so much to the ground, people, I feel like, now think that is a scary number, including myself. So it has devalued, and we're starting to use that narrative junk slab era, right? So I struggle with this because on the one hand, I am one of those people that are buying into the fear. But at the same time, really, it's only because of these, I feel like because of these conversations that people are getting scared of the Luka Prism, or people are getting scared of the Zion. But when you really think about it, you just extrapolate into like the entirety of the sports card market. Like, do you think there are more than 17,000 people that absolutely love Luka and are willing to drop a lot of money on Luka? Absolutely. Right. There's, 100 times that number. So it shouldn't be a scary number, but it is, and it's something that I've been really thinking about. I go back and forth, if you guys kind of get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so you're saying like the more we talk about it, or the talking heads kind of talk about this junk slab era, it's kind of might be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
You know what, John? I agree. I think we could, it depends on, the conversations we have, right? And it could go both ways, but I believe that overall, we're still in a bullish market because, there's record-setting prices every day, on certain cards, which is a good sign. And you're right, there might be a softer, market within the next year because the influx of graded slabs coming in, right? So, we might see a continuation of the overall correction. But I don't see, like I say, if you do your homework and you do the proper, research in the right cards, I think they will hold their values pretty well, in the short term and long term.
Interesting. And we're talking about base prisms, right? Or are you talking about silver prisms too? For Luka?
Yeah, I was just talking about the base prism.
Okay, got
it.
But
yeah, I know some people also talk about silver prism being a little bit too high as well, but...
But I think, the demand will always be there because you kind of want that, like, liquidity, right? Like, people are always after that silver. So I think the demand, it's a great supply demand. It's not something that's, pop 100 where it's just like, oh, impossible to get. And you got to literally pay an arm and a leg, right? I mean, It kind of got to that point, when it hit like 10K. I think it hit 10K, which is, that's 50% retraction right now. It could go down, maybe, who knows, right? Like 60%, right? But I think overall, it's a good time to buy.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if you really believe what you're saying, John, like, and I'm sure other people agree with you, right now is a great time to buy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Steep discount.
Yeah.
The second part of that question I was wondering is that if we continue to talk about it and the market continues to go down because everyone's just unloading their slabs at ridiculously low prices, do you think a lot of those investment type collectors, the ones that just are looking for alternative investments, are just going to run away from the sports card market and invest in other places like crypto? There's been a strong correlation between people investing in crypto and then that correlating with the sports card market taking a dip as well. Do you think that's a possibility, or do you think everyone's just going to diversify and invest in everything?
I think people will, the people that do their homework, like I said, will do their homework. They'll see that this can be a sound investment and they could see future potential with it, right? I think that's the thing. It's like if you're looking for the latest and greatest, the people that, go, all in on the latest, cryptocurrency without any fundamentals, I think you're going to get burned. And that's what's probably going to happen. To be honest, you're going to lose a lot of the people that aren't in it for, I guess, the long term or the investment portion. And they're looking to make a quick buck. And unfortunately, it's not a market right now. And I think once we pass that hurdle and everything catches up, and each release gets interesting by all these Panini and Tops and whatnot, I think it's a bright future. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we don't know what exactly is going to happen, but I think based on the last conversations that we've had, we have all kind of agreed that, it doesn't appear that like a lot of people have left the hobby. It still feels like the energy is still high. Card show attendance is like raring to go. So I want to believe, I think it should be fine, but definitely the base card game will definitely change. I think what we saw in March of 2020, in June of 2020, like it was so volatile. Like Luka would go into the playoffs in COVID, he would drop a 40 piece and his card would go 100% overnight. Like his optic would go from 500 US to like 1100 US in one night, like base optic, right? So I think that the whole flipping game and people who came into this, like sneakerheads who came into it, and small investors who came into it, thinking they can just quickly flip base and make a killing. I think a lot of them got burned. I think a lot of them found out, hey, it's not that easy to sell cards. Ooh, eBay takes a lot of percentage. Ooh, these consignments take a lot of percentage. Oh, I got to pack all these cards. I got to do all this work. And those types of people may have given up on the base game. So I think the base game portion, that landscape will change. I feel like I don't know the answer, but yeah, that's just my opinion. I think now we're gonna start to see if a great, like for example Chris Paul, he's killing it right now. We're gonna start seeing his. You're not gonna see 100% increase overnight. You might see a 5% bump or a 10% bump, which is still a when you talk about investments, that's a big jump in a card price, right? So I think we're gonna start to see more, like Hyung was saying, more fundamentals involved in the investments rather than this sort of crazy volatile train that we've been on.
And the other thing is with PSA, when they come back and offer the different services, I think they're changing their pricing structure. So it won't be it will be more, I think, cost prohibitive to just submit anything. We talked about this before, right? So in theory, we shouldn't have as many slabs as we've seen like earlier this year, which was crazy when everything was being submitted to PSA or to even other grading companies. So to me, I think that's kind of an indicator as well that this is kind of this unique situation we're in where everyone got hyped about the hobby so quickly, so fast. And now everything's the dust is kind of settling. And yeah, like you guys, I'm pretty bullish on the rest of 2021, how the sports card market's going to turn out.
For sure. 100%.
It'll be an interesting topic to now talk about. Okay, if we're gonna, what's gonna the landscape is changing on all these like junk, quote unquote junk slab. It'll be interesting to see what's gonna happen to PSA 9s, PSA 8s, PSA 7s, which were generally traded for pretty decent amounts. I'm interested to see what happens to those slabs.
That's a really good point because I actually just checked the price of my PSA 9 Silver Prism Trae Young, and you could get it for under $400 now, which hurts me.
That's crazy.
It hurts me because it's 65% discount right now.
Clark, that's when you need to open up your wallet and just buy all the Trae Young 9s on the market. This is your op.
Crazy.
But the thing is, like back to your point, John, like the PSA 9s, I don't know if there's going to be a strong enough market for it moving forward because PSA 10s were so expensive for some of these cards that PSA 9 was a good alternative solution, right? It still had some liquidity. But if PSA 10s are dropping at a significant rate, I would rather obviously get a Trae Young Silver Prism PSA 10 for $1,500 instead of $3,500, what it was earlier this year.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Prices are this low, but like I said, it's a good buying opportunity, right? Like I literally made a local deal for a Trae Silver for $750 Canadian, and he's still. I mean, he might do some crazy stuff. You never know, but I still think for a PSA 10 Silver, that's pretty cheap, right? So there's a lot of cards. I think we could say. The market's down and stuff, but I'm telling you, man, we're in the the peak of the market, and we're saying I wish prices cooled down because I will go on a buying spree, right? So here it is. It's like put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't help but think Lamine James. Shout out to Lamine James. one of his posts was like, "Oh, this is the time to buy. This is the dip," and the answer was like, "You guys still have money?" Like,
Yeah.
I think everybody's like just over leveraged like to the max right now. No one's got money to spend, even though everybody clearly recognizes this is like a low, a great time to buy.
For sure. All right, cool. We're going to introduce another new segment, and it's called Top 5. And essentially what this segment is about is we'll ask one person to come up with their top 5 list of anything hobby related. So this week, we decided to ask Hyung to come up with his top 5 Fernando Tatis rookie cards. We know he's on fire right now. He's been doing nothing but hitting. So yeah, this will be interesting to hear your top 5. So, and then we're going to ask Hyung why he ranked his choices that way.
All right. So my top 5 for Tatis, it's tough because his prices aren't cheap. So I'm kind of sensitive to that, but at the end of the day, this is generational talent, right? So you got to pay the big bucks. It's a serious, blue chip investment. For the first one, I'm going with his 2016 Bowman First Chrome Auto. I mean, it's,
of course,
that's kind of like the holy grail in my opinion. He's in a White Sox uniform, but I think it's going to be an iconic card if not already. And the alternative I'd say to that would be a Topps Chrome Auto. If you're kind of priced out of a Bowman Chrome, I'm going Topps Chrome Auto. So any form of the big auto, I think is my number one for Tatis. Going to number 2, I'm gonna go with flagship. That 410 and 203, Topps Chrome. Anything parallel. So in your paper, you got your Indy, your black, your camel, your Father's Day, your Mother's Day, and then you got your refractors, your X-fractors, your prisms, and all the way up to your reds, right, in the Topps Chrome. So getting your hands on any color in the parallels, I think you're going to do really well in the long term. So I would say that's a must-have, whether it's, and I base these cards out of kind of like you have options, so my second would be like the flagship image of that Tatis, that horizontal card, right? So that would be my number 2 pick. My number 3 would be the Heritage, Topps Heritage. And I'm going to include the chrome versions, the parallels, obviously a black and a gold. The gold is unreal. It's such a beautiful card. And it's that old Heritage, series look, which I love. And along with that, there is Real One Autos in red ink, which is numbered, low numbered, as well as just the regular blue ink. So I think that as a whole set, and an underrated card from that set is the Action Variation. I think that really gets overlooked. Really neat card because Tatis's flagship is horizontal defensive card, so that's an awesome alternative as a kind of like a hitting card. If you're, I personally like hitting cards rather than defensive cards, but I do like kind of like that 410 image. The next number 4, I'm gonna go. This is super underrated in my opinion. Bowman Chrome. It's another hitting image. I think long term it's going to be a classic Chrome card because his flagship image is just one. You got the rookie debuts in each series, but your Bowman Chrome is your kind of like sleeper, in my opinion. Prices are really cheap on that. Parallels are still fetching a premium. I think I seen a blue close, a couple months ago. It was when the market was a little hotter for like $3K. So the PSA 10 is still pretty hot, and you got the autos in that set, which I think are underrated autos as well. They're sneaky. I think there's a lot of value there. So Bowman Chrome, I think number 4. And then my number 5, I split it between 3 because there's so many Tatis cards and options, but they're all awesome. Like if you're a true collector, these are all awesome rookie card options. Is Bowman Sterling, Bowman's Best, and Topps Finest. Kind of like the 3-tier no love. They get no love, but awesome long-term cards in my opinion. They all the Sterling doesn't come with an auto, but it's super low pop, even base. You got the color variation. I think you got your golds, your blues to 25 in the Sterling, and then you got Bowman's Best, as well as an auto, and Topps Finest with an auto as well. So that's what I would leave with my top 5 rookie cards of Tatis. There's actually more, which is crazy, but I think you can't go wrong with either cards if you're a true like investor or if you're a true collector. I think there's a lot of options for Tatis.
Yeah, that's a good list.
Yep.
Although
disagree.
you cheated a little bit with his a top 8 list, but top 5.
Sorry. It's just too much. When you said top 5, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. If I'm pulling one card at a time, it's like I can't even. That's impossible, right?
That's cool. Since you went first, we'll allow it, but we'll make it harder for the next person that goes in our top 5 segment. Johnny, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. Hyung's the expert amongst the three of us in baseball. I can't disagree. Yeah. I think everyone in the hobby will say Bowman First Auto is the holy grail, especially color. I'm just gonna say like my personal, from like a collector / investor, my personal favorites. It's got to be like if somebody gave me $10,000 to spend on Tatis, I would probably be going for the flagship ID Independence Day. I love that card. I love the black parallel. Love that card. I love the sapphire. And then just in general, in terms of even base, I think the Bowman First is that's a great one because it's 2016. That's sort of the pre-modern era population pump. Like I think that's even the base alone is pretty low pop. So that's a great card too. But those are like ID, any paper parallel. Oh, I forgot foil board. Oh, I love foil board. I think it's so underrated. So underrated. You look at the pop. I think it's pop 8.
I got one.
Board. So jealous. But yeah, I mean, I would love to upgrade to like a pretty decent, for myself, a decent Tatis, and I would love either. For me, in my price range for upgrading, it would be either the Tatis Sapphire or the Tatis foil board. Like those would be. Yeah, for sure. Love those two cards.
Good choice. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with your top 5, Hyung, but I wish the 2016 Bowman Chrome, of course, if you don't put that as your number 1, then no one's going to take you seriously from this day forward, right? But I wish it was a better shot. It's a little boring. It's
very disappointing. Very honestly, that was the number one reason, because I remember I was looking at it from a hobbyist. It's like, I just don't like the image, and my motto was, I guess this is where it burns you, right? Collect what you love, right? Yeah. And I honestly didn't. I love the image now with the price tag, right? So it's like, sure. It's justifiable. Who cares if he was in Chicago? We'll talk about James Shield trade. That was amazing. Like what happened with Chicago there. So
at the prices you can get for the 2016 Bowman Chrome, he could be sitting on the bench. All right,
right. And, that's crazy. That was the craziest trade, by the way. Just unbelievable. If you look at what
ridiculous,
what the White Sox got out of that, like what they actually got out of that. I mean, they did get $50 million, I think, additional cash, but that was crazy. But anyway, sorry to.
No, actually, that's a good question, because if they didn't make the trade, would they have the same young core that they have now, or were some of those pieces of that trade
Tim Anderson
pieces? Tim Anderson, okay.
Right,
but how about like Eloy or Louis?
That's a scary lineup right there, though. I tell you that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really scary. Yeah,
White Sox.
Yeah, what could have been?
And Jose Abreu, underrated Jose Abreu,
100%. Yeah, he's solid every year, consistent. He's gonna mash.
And I like the Topps Heritage pick. Like I'm a sucker for Topps Heritage.
Classic,
and
right?
I think that's underrated. I think
it's such a classic card.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that's fun. We'll do it again in a future episode. And maybe, Johnny, you could take one on next time.
Nice.
So we'll go to our final segment of today's episode, which is something we introduced last week, actually, and it's called Pick One. And this is where we choose 2 players and pit them against each other, and we ask, who would we rather invest in? All right? So our first Pick One challenge is between Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns versus Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz. Both teams are primed to go deeper into the NBA playoffs. They're the ones that are carrying the team, arguably. So yeah, who would you rather invest in?
This one's a tough one, Clark, because I was actually looking at both guys, right? So for me, it's difficult because, Donovan Mitchell has proven everything. I mean, this guy's a beast, and he's fun. He was always fun to watch. But for me, I'm going to go with Devin Booker. I think he's putting up some crazy numbers, and it's going to be fun to watch him keep going. And I love one card that I think is a big card for him is I really like his court side. So I'm biased for the card. Yeah. So I'm in on Booker over Mitchell based on just the card aesthetics alone.
That's cool.
That card is so underrated for Devin Booker. Oh man, regret not picking it up. I'm Booker too. I'm a little biased because I personally like Booker better. So in this situation, I think most people kind of agree here. It's almost like a coin flip between these two guys in terms of talent. Yeah. I personally like Booker. I like, the Suns are fun to cheer on. I love Chris Paul. Mitchell, people hate on Utah. I hate on them too. No offense to anybody from Utah, but we most of us grew up in the Jordan era. We hated when Utah came against Jordan. Like Malone, Stockton, Jeff Hornacek.
They were beasts.
What a monster team, man! But I hated Utah, so it's But it's one of those things that we talked about it before, like certain elite talent being on teams that are either really bad or teams that are generally not well perceived by the market. Like anything can happen, man. Like if Donovan Mitchell gets bumped out of the playoffs this year, next year, all of a sudden he gets traded to the Lakers. I don't know. And, and next thing you know, his card is worth double Devin Booker's, right? So anything can really happen here. But just out of my own personal bias, I pick Booker.
Okay. I'm going to go with Donovan Mitchell, actually, for two reasons. The first is I think Devin Booker's prices are just really high now, right? So, and Donovan Mitchell's has been kind of maintaining where it's been throughout the playoff run, in my opinion. It might have gone up since last week because of the performance of the Jazz. But I mean, I think there's a deal to be had for Donovan Mitchell rookie cards, especially his autos. Like, I'm eyeing Donruss Optic rookie auto base, and it hasn't budged in terms of pricing.
Autos are so underrated in basketball. It's unbelievable. I still don't get it. But to me, that's why it's like I look at it like a nice auto, and if it's on like a nice card, I'm in. Like I'm buying it for the card, because who knows, in 20 years you look back and you're like, if a LeBron signed a Topps Chrome, like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, it might be different in the future, right? So
yeah. No, exactly. And my other reason for picking Donovan Mitchell is I actually thought of picking up a Devin Booker Prism like a couple years ago, and I never did. So I can't go in now, knowing that I could have gotten it for $100.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that will keep
it's
you
hurting
away.
me.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
Clark, I agree with you, man. Like, you know what? I've always liked Devin Booker, and when I got back in the hobby about 18 months ago, I started. Devin Booker was one of the first Prism cards I looked at, and back then, believe it or not, my budget per card PSA 10 was $100 Canadian. Right. And the Devin Booker card, it was right out of my price range. It was going for like 160, 175. We're talking like 130 US, like tiny money. PSA 10 Prism. Sure. It's not even that long ago. And I remember one night, I didn't know who Gary Vee was at the time, and I hope listeners don't give me flack for that. But I remember watching the Devin Booker, and cards start to go up. I think at the time I was tracking Jokic Prism was super cheap, Embiid Prism was super cheap, under $100, and Booker was one of the other ones. And Booker was around 200, still a little bit out of my price range, but I was keeping an eye on it, hoping it would come down. And overnight, the card went from 300 to 400, and it hit 800. And I didn't know why it hit $800 out of nowhere. And I realized that Gary Vee released an Instagram post of him, a photo of "I'm back, boys" or something like that, and there's like stacks of Booker's and Kevin Durant tops in the background. And overnight, that card went up, and it's never come down from that sort of 800 US mark since that day. And I'm with you. Like I don't own any Devin Booker. I love Devin Booker, but I don't own it because like I just can't pull the trigger. I do feel you're right in that I still feel Devin Booker's a little bit overpriced for what he's accomplished versus Donovan Mitchell versus Jason Tatum. These guys are all very similar elite talents, Ja Morant. But yeah, I'm with you, man. That's a great point.
It's funny though. When we first started in the hobby, we had these budgets that we wouldn't go over, and now we look at our budgets now.
What's a budget? What's a budget? What's a budget? It's a deal, right? It means it's a deal. It's a good deal, right?
All right. Our second pick one challenge today, we're going to go to tennis, and it's going to be between Novak Djokovic. I think he just won the French Open. And
stud.
Of course, Roger Federer, one of the all-time greats. So who are you going with between Joker and Federer?
I'm going Federer just because his Net Pro Elite card. That is probably one of the greatest cards. It's sweet. The image for me. I'm a card. I love the card, and that's my pick based on that. They're both GOATs, right? So you can't go wrong. I think Federer has maybe 20 more titles than Djokovic, but I mean, he still has, I think he has 4 or 5 years under Federer, so it's going to be interesting to see who's the ultimate GOAT, but it's a coin toss, but I'm going to go Federer because of his Net Pro Elite. Go check it out. Cool. Awesome card.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is an easy one for me. It's Federer all the way. I think from a likability perspective, I like Federer more. I think the general public does too. I don't know, not anybody who doesn't really like Federer. And he's widely considered one of the greatest, like the GOAT tennis players. So even from an investment standpoint, when people start collecting these alternative cards, they're going to go after the GOATs, right? They're going to go after,
for sure,
whatever, Federer, Michael Schumacher, Tiger Woods, like these GOAT players. So even from investment, it makes sense to go after Federer first. But man, Djokovic is, man, he's a beast too. Like this guy competed in an era that had two major roadblocks in Nadal and Federer, two of the all-time greats.
Oh yeah.
And he still made a legendary career out of it. Like, poor guy, man. And I think what really hurts his value over the years is that early in his career he was not really liked, right? He was a bit of a hothead. I think the general perception of him, he was sort of the villain amongst the three beasts. Right. So he's becoming likable now because everybody's recognized this guy is an all-time legend. Let's enjoy his presence and his game. But he started off on a rocky surface, and I think that's really affecting his overall likability and like people's nostalgia when they think about their favorite players in tennis and all that stuff. So I think with all that factored in, I think Federer is an easy choice.
Yeah, I think most people would agree that Federer is probably the better investment, but I'm taking the contrarian choice again, and I'm going to go with Joker. Because he's more fun to watch. I love tennis for the big personalities in the sport, and you can't argue that Novak is one of them. Right. I love John McEnroe, you know what I mean? Like
awesome.
over
awesome
Andre.
Yeah.
John, like those guys made tennis what it is, even today, like made tennis truly entertaining, right? Because you never know, they had the talent, and you never knew what to expect on the court at any moment, at the highest level, right. And Djokovic is, he's still got years to play, so it'll be fun to watch him go for more open titles. And
we'll see.
Let's see how things go. All right, and our last one is, I don't know if this is going to be hard or easy, but I want to pit these two guys together, and the first one is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We're all from Toronto, so we're big fans of Vladdy. And I'm going to pit him against Shohei Ohtani, who we talked about in episode 1. We talked about him being a one-of-a-kind player. But the reason why I put these two together is if you look at the Vegas odds now of who's going to win AL MVP, who would you say is number one now at this point? It could change tomorrow, but who's number one?
I'm going with Vladdy. I'm going with Vladdy, even though I'm not going to discount what Shohei's doing, because I'm going to say this first. Like, his numbers look like this. Maybe like 280 or whatever he's hitting, 3,510 RBIs, and, you know, a 2.79 ERA with 150 Ks. You know, like, to me, that's like, wow, like, who has ever done that before, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, the numbers that Vladdy are putting up, if he continues this, you're talking about this might be one of the greatest seasons ever by a 22-year-old, right? And exactly, all time, and especially by a 22-year-old, right? So I remember there was all-time OPS right now as a 22-year-old. Vladdy was wedged between Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio. So for me... Yeah, you're talking what? And it's like he's on pace to hit 50 plus home runs, hit 340, you know, and he's doing it at the age of 22 years old. So for me, I'm saying Vladdy is a 80 hit tool, and there's not too many 80 hit tool prospects, right? Wander Franco is one of them, so hint hint. That's I mean, he's a special talent. There's a reason why his card price is right. So Vladdy was a 80 hit tool, and you're seeing it now finally. So for me, it's Vladdy for sure, no doubt.
And for those reasons you mentioned about Shohei, right now he's the favorite AL MVP.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think that might change if Vladdy, like you said, keeps hitting the way he's hitting, despite what Shohei's doing both on the pitching side of things and hitting side of things too. But yeah, Johnny, what do you think?
Right. I can't say in terms of who I think the MVP is. I think, you know, recency bias suggests they're just looking at just how unbelievable Vladdy has been over the last 30 days. Recency bias will say Vladdy is the got a little bit of the edge over Ohtani because Ohtani has cooled down a little bit. But if I'm going to switch gears to just like strictly investments, this is even from an investment standpoint, this is pretty tough, man. Like, I think Vladdy is still undervalued compared to all of the other big time studs in the MLB. When we're talking about Acuna and Tatis and some of the big boys.
100%.
I think Vladdy's still got a lot of room to grow to catch up to values that people are willing to pay for top high-end talent. At the same time, you got Ohtani on the other side, who is a complete unicorn. Like, this guy is nothing we've ever seen in the modern era. Maybe in all of baseball, like people are saying going back all the way to Babe Ruth. Nothing I've ever seen. It's exciting. He's exciting to watch. He's got power. He strikes out people. From an investment standpoint, you're talking about investing in a unicorn. I know people are a little bit scared of, you know, the injury scares and whatnot, but then you also have you got to think about the audience or the clientele who would be purchasing Ohtani. It would be the regular sports card market, baseball market, and then you got Asia markets, Japanese markets that are after this guy too, right? So I think from like a global perspective, I would give the edge to Ohtani as an overall investment. But like I said, Vladdy, I don't know. Vladdy's still got a lot of room to grow. So this is a tough one, but I'm going to give a small edge to Ohtani because he's a unicorn.
I thought you were going to choose Vladdy for sure, and I was about to call both of you homers. That kind of ruined it for me.
Sorry, buddy.
But those are good reasons for sure to go with Ohtani. I guess it was harder than I thought it would be, because I thought Vladdy would be the obvious choice for us, taking the bias out of us, the Toronto bias out of us. But
well, we didn't get your pick, man.
I know. I'm going back and forth even now, but I think I'm gonna go Vladimir. You almost convinced me with your argument.
Yeah, that was pretty close. Holy. It was a no brainer first, you know.
And then he brought in the global market. I'm like, shoot, that's true. That's a really good point. But oh man, Vladimir is so fun to watch, and I think he's just starting. You know what I mean? And I think as the game progresses, like as baseball becomes more popular, which I believe will, like I know people who are saying baseball's dying, and I know Hyung, you hate when people say that too, right? The sport's dying, but I think the sport's actually going to get more exciting. especially as MLB hopefully allows some of these players to do their thing, to market themselves the way they should market themselves,
Right.
and stop restricting how they should act, right?
For sure.
And I think Vladimir Guerrero is going to be one of those key guys to promote the sport of baseball around the world, hopefully. You know, like right now it might not be the case, but man, watching him swing the bat and launching those homers, it's something to see.
It's pretty.
And we get the privilege of seeing it often, watching a lot of Jays games, right? But
yeah, for sure.
But like, and to your point, I was going to mention that as well. Like compared to the big three in 2021, which is Acuna, Tatis, and Soto, like the discrepancy between them shouldn't be as big as it is now. Like Vladdy should be closing the gap, and I think he is closing the gap pretty quickly now. But there's still opportunity to get in low.
I think there was such a big expectation for Vladdy, you know, coming in as the number one prospect. True. You know, his first chromes were ridiculous. I remember like before the card market got hot. This is probably back in 2018. Like that was the big card. Like there was no Acuna. Yeah. Acuna didn't exist. You know, like you know, and Vladdy was, you know, the card to have, and you know all that hype kind of led to disappointment. You know, as a 20-year-old, right? It's like, what were you doing as a 20-year-old, Clark? You know, and people have all this expectation, but for me, I think that's what really hurt Vlad's cards, and because I've been a holder through the whole time, you know, so I know what it feels to emotionally go through the pain and the joys now, I guess, to actually see. And if you look at our Instagrams, we've been preaching this, you know, since 2019, you know, saying, you know, Vladdy cards are way too underpriced. This guy's an 80 hit tool for a reason. Like, give the guy a break. He's 20 years old, you know, and then sure enough, when he's 22 years old, look what he's doing, right? And that's remember, this is in a time where, I mean, you've seen the batting averages, you know, they're at an all-time low, right?
Oh, yes.
You know, you don't think about that. And, you know, I know he has that home field advantage that people talk about, but look what he did at Fenway this past, you know, week, right? I mean, he's not just a guy that hits at home, man. He could really hurt you if you make mistakes, and that's what's happening. But I will say this, it's I think pitchers are going to start, you know, not giving him, you know, all these, you know, hittable pitches. I think a lot of the, you know, he's hitting mistakes essentially, and you know, as pitchers, you know, pitch around him more. I like Vladdy's eyes too. Like, I mean, you look at his walk to strikeout ratio. I think that's insane. If you look at it from a objective, like hitting standpoint, what he is doing is insane. Like, we're talking, this is one of the greatest seasons we've seen in modern baseball since, you know, you could call the steroid era, right? So, like, for me to be able to witness this is something special, let alone a 22-year-old, right? Yeah,
crazy.
Right.
How much do you think he learned to swing from his dad?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it's in the gene. Look, like, he's one of the greatest right-handed hitters of all time too, right? And he never wore batting gloves. That's how OG, you know, Senior was, right? This guy goes up there, picks up the dirt, man. Like it's like, you know, like the 1800s, and just like, just give me the bat, you know?
Yeah, I can't even do that in softball. I have to wear gloves.
My palm's too sweaty, you know?
I know, man.
Well, if you look at Vlad Sr. swing and Vlad Jr., there's a lot of similarities, but like their strike zone, like, you know, even a ball they can reach and hit. You know what I mean? That's what's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what I remember about Senior was like his when if he got extended, good night. Like, you know, his extension was ridiculous, and he could literally, you know, put a ball 375 feet to left center field, you know, with a flick of the wrist, you know, on a slider outside in the left-hander's batter's box. Like, this is how good Senior was as a hitter, right? So it's like
100%.
I was such a like fan growing up because I grew up. I was born in the early '80s, so Senior. This is when Senior was like, you know, he was the man, like in Montreal, like him, Larry Walker, like all these old school guys, right? So it was a definite blessing to see him, and then also witness that home run that Vladdy hit when he got called up, you know, in that spring training game in Montreal to win it in Montreal. Like, to me, that's
iconic
just like,
for us. Yeah.
And after that, I was a fan. I was completely sold. I'm like, this guy is gonna be the best hitter in baseball. And if you see how much I've invested in Vladdy, you'll see. But I didn't invest as much as you'd think, because I got in early, right? I did my homework. I got in early back in 2019. So
That's awesome.
That is awesome. You should check out Hyung's Instagram at Integrity Sports Cards, and you'll see all those Vladdy rookies that he's collected.
Yeah, that are about to come back from PSA.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Hey man, if you look at Vladdy's sports card journey, it's eerily, for those listening out there that are looking, you know, eerily similar to Luis Robert. I'm just saying, you know, like when we're talking about hype, then not meeting the expectation, still batting great, still young. So I'm, you know, like eerily similar. So just wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that for sure. And it was an injury that took him out. So like, once he comes back fully healthy, oh man, watch out.
I can't wait. Yeah.
It's an underrated buy right now, because he'll probably be back right when playoffs, or right near playoffs, about to start to mold up. And, you know, Chicago could make a deep run, and who knows what kind of damage this kid could make, like Luis Robert can make in the playoffs, and his card could just completely rebound overnight, right? So there's some possibility. Even within year, I think a lot of flippers and investors are up, you know, offloading to maybe come back into it next year, but it could even happen this year.
I'm going to take a look at some listings after this podcast.
Oh man. Sure. Luis is so low. I'm so tempted to load up some more.
Sweet. All right, that wraps up our pick one segment, and actually it wraps up our podcast episode for today. Just wanted to thank everyone who's been listening so far. This is episode 3. It's been fun doing it with you guys, and yeah, we can't wait to come back with another episode next week. So see you guys later.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.